Well, it's a story that's been going on in San Diego and across California for that matter. The grocery store business is what we're talking about. And it's a story that has raised all kinds of questions. Haggen Grocery Stores this week announcing that two other grocery chains, Smart Final and Gelson's, have agreed to buy about 36 of the stores that Haggen is closing following them filing for bankruptcy protection last month. All of this, of course, happens after late last year, Haggen went and bought more than 150 Albertsons and Vons stores and moved from being a small northwestern U.S. grocery store chain to being in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And then somewhere along the line, things went wrong. We wanted to find out what went wrong, maybe, and what it all means. And so on the KOGO news line with us right now is San Diego State marketing expert Miro Copic. And Miro, really appreciate you taking a few minutes to join us here on the News at Noon to help our listeners understand what went wrong and what happened with Haggen. So as you look at this case, what do you see having happen?
Well, thank you for having me on. I think one of the things Haggen did is, as a small company, 18 stores in Bellingham, Washington, as you mentioned, they were invested in by Comvest Partners of a large private equity firm, and the goal was to really scale them. So they were going from 18 stores to about 170 stores in the Southwest. They weren't prepared for the expansion, the complexity of the supermarket business, the logistics, the marketing. Even though you have national chains like Safeway and Albertsons, a lot of the marketing is very local. And when they came in, they relied a lot on Albertsons, on the information that they received from Albertsons, and they made a number of mistakes. They didn't market their concept, and their concept was actually quite interesting. It's kind of a cross between Whole Foods and a traditional supermarket with the prices of a traditional supermarket.
And that's interesting when you say that, because when that first news came, when they bought the stores, all those stores, and that concept started to emerge, everybody kind of reacted, well, that sounds like a cool idea.
It's a great idea. It's organic foods, locally sourced foods. Their first big mistake, no marketing. Nobody knew that they were coming. They didn't talk about their concept, so whether it was in the news media or the business media, people knew. But the consumer didn't know. They just assumed that because Albertsons was vacating the stores, the general consumer would come into the same location. And that's not necessarily true. Secondly, they had a bunch of glitches at launch with pricing, so a lot of key staple products like eggs and milk were really overpriced versus supermarkets, so people complained. So the initial reaction was nobody knew what they were, and second, people who did know said, hey, the pricing's a little off here for a big supermarket. And that started putting them into trouble.
So would you say their business plan was bad, or they just did not know how to execute it, and there was a lot of naive executives involved here?
I think it was more they did not execute the business plan effectively. I mean, the executive team they have is seasoned in the supermarket business, but I think scaling, number one, is a challenge. Number two, they didn't understand the competitive environment. In Southern California, you've got not just the traditional supermarkets, but you have interesting concepts like a Trader Joe's, or you have a Costco, or a Smart and Final, and those you really pull consumers. People will go to a Trader Joe's in addition to their main supermarket, whereas in other parts of the country, the only option is the main supermarket, and that's kind of where they were up in Bellingham.
So now, Miro, the news this week that Gelson's and Smart and Final are looking to buy some 36 of their stores. Do you see this as being something that is going to be good for consumers then?
I think it's actually very good for consumers because Gelson's has been operating in Southern California for a long time. They're an interesting format, kind of like Bristol Farms. They're going to look at locations that are very aligned with their consumer base. They offer a lot of value-added stuff, so consumers will be very excited about those. Smart and Final has been in Southern California for a lifetime. They started out as a wholesaler, and now they really dabbled into the consumer side, kind of like a Costco or a Sam's. And they will really be an interesting player in areas that have business parks along with residential. So it might be more interesting for those chains to add value and be successful than what Haggen tried to do.
Well, Miro Copic from San Diego State University, thanks so much. Some great insight into the story about Haggen, and it certainly would be great if some of these soon-to-be empty stores are not empty for very long and actually have some new people, because nothing worse that can kind of negatively affect the neighborhood is these large storefront stores like this that are empty. So thanks very much, Miro.
Thank you.
Miro Copic, Professor of Marketing at San Diego State University. Some great insight on the Haggen story. And as that story continues to develop, we'll have it for you right here on